What amounts to a valid contract? What is an offer and acceptance? Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today let's talk about the two elements which are the fundamental building blocks of any contract. And at the end we'll talk about a third element which is also essential for the formation of a contract. Let's get started. Any contract usually needs to satisfy two fundamental requirements for it to be valid. These are the offer and the acceptance. So if you're entering into a contract, you have to make sure that your contract has a valid offer and a valid acceptance. Let's start with the offer. An offer is the initial step in forming any contract. An offer is basically a promise made by one person to another, indicating their willingness to be legally bound by a contract. What you have to understand is that not every statement and proposal will amount to a valid offer. For there to be a valid offer, it must satisfy certain criteria. Firstly, the offer must be clear and definite. This means the terms of the offer must be specific enough to indicate the person's willingness to be bound by his words. For example, saying "I'll sell you my car for a fair price" is not a valid offer because it's not specific enough. On the other hand, saying that "I'll sell you my Honda Civic car for 5 million rupees" is clear and definite enough to amount to an offer. Secondly, an offer must be communicated to the other party. In most cases, this communication is directly done through words or writing. However, there are certain rare exceptions where things like newspaper advertisements and public announcements have amounted to offers once that announcement comes to the attention of the offeree. However, an offer must also be distinguished from an invitation to treat. An invitation to treat is simply an invitation made by one person to another, enticing them to come and make an offer. So therefore, the invitation itself will not amount to an offer. For example, if items are displayed on a shop window, that doesn't mean that the shop owner is offering to sell them at that price. Instead, it will be considered just an invitation to treat made by the shop owner, enticing you to come into the shop and make an offer to buy that item at the marked price. So it would be you and not the shop owner who's making the offer. The same logic goes for supermarkets as well. Items displayed on the aisles are mere invitations to treat, as held in the case of Pharmaceutical Society versus Boots, and it is the customer who makes the offer when he presents the goods at checkout. Now, once a valid offer has been made, there are multiple things that can happen to that offer. The offeree can reject the offer, they can make a counter offer, the offer can lapse, the offer can be revoked, and the offer can be accepted. Basically, there are multiple outcomes that can arise after an offer is made. Let's say I offered to buy your house. You can say you're not interested, thereby rejecting the offer. You can propose a different amount for the sale, which will amount to a counter offer, which cancels the original offer. The offer can lapse because you fail to give me an answer within a reasonable period of time. Or I can even change my mind and revoke the offer before you accept. And the final outcome could be that you accept my offer. So this brings us to the second element, acceptance. Acceptance is the offeree's agreement to the terms of the offer. It's essentially saying, yes, I agree to the terms and I want to go ahead with this contract. For acceptance to be valid, it must also satisfy certain requirements. First, the acceptance must be unconditional. This means the offeree must accept the terms without imposing any new conditions or changing the terms. Any alterations to the offer or any conditions imposed on the offer will amount to a counter offer, which can lead to further renegotiation, therefore it won't amount to acceptance. For example, I offer to sell you a watch for $100, but you come back and say that you will buy it for $90. In such a case, the acceptance isn't unconditional, so it won't amount to a valid acceptance. Second, the acceptance needs to be communicated to the offeror. Now, silence in most cases will not amount to acceptance. For example, if I offer to sell you my bike, your silence on the matter will not amount to acceptance. So basically, you need to accept either verbally or in writing. However, there are certain exceptions to the rule. For instance, in the case of unilateral offers, the offeree is asked to do something, and if the offeree does that thing, that would amount to acceptance. For example, in the famous case of Carlyle versus Carbolic Smokeball Company, the newspaper advertisement clearly made an offer to the public that if someone were to buy their smoke balls, consume it and still get influenza, they would receive a reward. The courts in this case held that there was acceptance by simply satisfying the requirements. But of course, this is a very rare exception, so it's always advisable to expressly communicate your acceptance. Now, once there is a meeting of the minds, that is, there is a valid offer and acceptance, there is a third requirement that needs to be satisfied, which is consideration. Consideration requires that something of value is exchanged between the parties to the contract. This helps to make the contract legally enforceable and helps to distinguish the contract from a mere promise. Consideration can take many forms such as money, goods, services, etc. The key is that each party must give up something of value. One of the most important things about consideration is that it must be sufficient, but there is no requirement for it to be fair and equal. Basically, what it means is that the value that is exchanged between the parties doesn't need to be perfectly balanced. For instance, if you are selling an antique coin collection for $1 to your friend, the consideration will still be valid even though it may not be a fair market value. Now, why are these elements so important to a contract? First, offer and acceptance indicate a meeting of the minds between the parties. An offer is an indication of one party's willingness to enter into a contract, and acceptance is the other party's agreement to the terms of that offer. So this ensures that both parties are on the same page and that there is a clear understanding as to what the parties are agreeing to. By having a clear offer and acceptance, both parties know exactly what they are getting into, reducing the chances of misunderstandings or disputes down the road. Secondly, these elements are legal requirements that the courts use to identify whether there is a valid contract or not. For a contract to be legally enforceable, there must be an offer and acceptance. Without these elements, there is no legally binding agreement, and the parties cannot use the legal system to enforce their rights and seek remedies in the case of a breach. On the other hand, consideration is an important requirement because it acts as evidence to indicate that the parties intended to create a legally binding contract. It shows that both parties were willing to give up something of value to be party to this agreement, indicating their serious intent to create a contract. So this helps the courts distinguish between a valid contract and a mere promise. So the next time you're entering into a contract, whether it be a business agreement or buying a car or even just agreeing to mow your neighbor's lawn for a fee, understand that these fundamental concepts are crucial in forming a valid contract. It provides clarity to the agreement, protects your interests, and ensures that your contract is legally binding. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Hope you found it useful, and if you did, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more videos like this. I'll see you in another episode. Take care. Bye.